Hey everybody, what's happening? Welcome to Let's Play Majerus G3, Episode 2, Painting, Painting, Painting. In this series, we are taking a look at the recently restored laptop and virtual studio of late contemporary artist Michel Majerus. I encourage you to take a look at episode number 1, which is going to be somewhere on my YouTube timeline. That'll bring you up to speed on the project. Who's Majerus? Who am I? And I guess most importantly, what is this laptop? And in that episode, I promised I wouldn't yap at you too much up front in further episodes. So let's just jump right into it. I've got everything booted up. And let's throw this over to the laptop. Okay, cool. First, some housekeeping. Thank you, everybody, for your kind notes about episode 1 and just like the general appreciation. I know it means a lot to me, and I could speak for the estate and Rhizome. So thank you very much. We had a great YouTube comment. At BW4656 asked, did Majerus have a screensaver? Great question. Short answer is no. Longer answer is screensavers weren't installed by default until OS X, and he would have had to have After Dark or Dark Side of the Mac or one of the screensaver programs, and I wasn't able to find one. So great question. Third thing I wanted to mention is thanks for your patience. I know it's been a long time since episode 1. I've been busy, and so I appreciate everyone just like being chill about the time between episode 1 and episode 2. And one of the things I've been busy with is a 2-person show at the Michel Majerus Estate. So my work and the work of Majerus are together. I was able to pick kind of my favorite 3 works or 4 works of his. So if you're watching this episode in 2024 or January, February, or March 2025 and you're near Berlin, please go check out the show. It turned out really, really cool. And that brings us to today's episode. One of the works in the show, a painting called Pressure Groups. In the case of the show, it's Pressure Groups 3, is part of this series that today's episode is going to be based around. So this series of paintings is called Pressure Groups. There are 3 of them: Pressure Groups 1, Pressure Groups 2, Pressure Groups 3. They are 3 meter by 3 meter acrylic on cotton paintings. And what I've done for today's episode is I have found a bunch of files related to their construction, and I'm going to go through them chronologically by date modified. So I'm going to start at the beginning and work our way up to the creation of these paintings. They were made for a show in New York at the Friedrich Petzel Gallery called Leukeland, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This show opened September 5th, 2002. Or in the case of the laptop, this show will open on September 5th, 2002. So let's jump into the folder. And the first file I want to look at is in a folder called 600 here. And this no SP folder that we're looking at, this is the kind of working folder for this exhibition. So I'm going to go into 600. I'm going to go to a folder called Jorge Wall, and I'm going to click on a file called jorgewall.psd. And it is now July 28th, 2002. Okay, so what do we see here? We see a collage of 6 Frank Stella paintings. Frank Stella, of course, is the late, great contemporary artist who emerged in the late 50s with these kind of beautiful, minimal, shaped canvas, striped paintings. So for this episode, we're going to be hearing a lot about Frank Stella, but for this file, what I want you to do is I want you to remember these beautiful, minimal Frank Stellas. Real quick about the file name Jorge. Also, we see Jorge Wall, Jorge 1. Most likely this refers to Jorge Pardo, who was a good friend of Majerus's. The exact relationship between these files and Jorge, I was not able to find out. Okay, next I'm going to click on jorge1.eps, and this is a freehand file. Freehand is a vector kind of typographic program. I guess today, I use InDesign today. It would be something similar to that. And actually, I don't know if freehand still exists. Okay, we have three kind of parts of this file. Nouvelle Ville, these very cool stripes, and the phrase robots go to war. Nouvelle Ville, I think, refers to Morocco. There's a section of Fez and a section of Marrakesh that people refer to as Nouvelle Ville. I'll come back to that in a second. These cool stripes. For that, I want us to look at this book here, Michel Majerus Notes, 1995. So this is a publication that the estate published a few years ago of Majerus's notebooks, or one of the notebooks. Actually, I'm not sure if it's one or many. But on page 135, kind of amazingly, there's a drawing. I can't zoom in because my camera's just going to go blurry. There's a drawing that looks kind of amazingly like what we see here on the screen. And next to it, he writes, "Thinking about Pollock as the model for Stella stripes. Me, all color silver and neons, etc. With the roller over it, drawings first and then." So what I think he's talking about is doing a Pollock in the style of a Stella, or a Stella in the style of a Pollock. And so what I imagine here is this is like a Pollock, and we're talking Jackson Pollock. This is kind of like a drip painting, but instead of drips, he's using Stella stripes. Robots Go to War, I wasn't able to find out about. I'm assuming this might be one of his kind of stock phrases. He is always using these great kind of phrases in his work, burned out, a newcomer, things like that. And perhaps this is one of those. Okay, so, I'm going to quit freehand, and now we're going to go back to this NoSP folder. And next, I want to jump into this folder called ST. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to list these files. So now we're at August 5th, and we have all these files going from 2:30 to 4-ish. And I'm going to open up ST0. This one has a little bit of a later timestamp, but I'm assuming that's because it was open the whole time during this working session and saved again at the end. All right, what is this? This is literally a Frank Stella work. It is called Sidinfi, or I'm going to try, hope I pronounce this right, Sidi Ifni. And it is from 1973, and it is from a print portfolio, which was an homage to Picasso. You could see this exact work right now on the MoMA website. The colors here are a little bit more burned out. So whether or not that was just a reproduction thing, or Majerus kind of heightened the colors a little bit, I'm unclear. Okay, so and the last thing that's important to mention is that this is also a city in Morocco, and this was part of some of Frank Stella works inspired by his travels to Morocco. Okay, so let's pick a couple random files. So let's try ST5, for example. Okay, so what is this? So here, Majerus is just taking a section of this green and brown part down here and kind of chopping it into a triangle. And if we look at other files in this folder, we see what he's doing is he's taking just these little sections of the Frank Stella. And here he's just kind of like taking a triangle or like a diamond out of the middle of a Frank Stella. And so in this kind of 2-hour working session, he's kind of just taking these details of a Stella. And it could be noted here that on page 45 of his notes, he has this idea of taking a Stella detail. And I'll remind you, that's already in 95. So it's 7 years earlier that he first had some of the ideas that are going into these sketches. So I'll end up here on selection.psd. This is the last file kind of modified in this folder. And whether or not this is 2:30 in the morning or 4 in the morning, it's unclear. I mean, my experience with time codes before computers were syncing to the net is they could be off by quite a bit. I did a project with Warhol's Amiga a few years ago, and he also had timestamps in the middle of the night. So I don't know, maybe these people who are up in the middle of the night, that could also be the thing. Okay, so here's where Majerus ends up. Here are these kind of selects or selections of these kind of Stella details. And they are these like very cool triangle things. Okay, cool. So let's now jump to August 21st. So I'm going to go back. How do I get back here? Yeah, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to scroll up to August 21st. And I want to click on a file called to_wand. And where is to_wand? Oh, yeah, here. So in this file, this is the first time we see this kind of digital sketches leap into the real world, so to speak. And you'll see in a second what I'm talking about. Because one of the things that I've discovered that he likes to do, well, here, let's let it show up first. Yeah, so here are 3 triangles, and what they are is they are kind of photoshopped into an installation picture of the Friedrich Petzel gallery space in New York, along with some other artworks and sketches of his that were being considered for this show. And here, of course, we see these things. And the very cool thing about these 3 triangles here is actually, if you look at his selection file, there's actually kind of there's only a vague relationship between the Stella details and the actual triangles that he is rendered here. Even the number of stripes are different. So he hasn't really taken much except the idea of a triangle with these kind of stripes, which is kind of very, very, very cool, in my honest opinion. Okay, so next I want to take a look at a file which is from August 28th. And of course, we're getting like pretty close to the show now. The show is September 5th, so this is all like really happening. Here, and my interpretation of this file here is this is where this is some kind of like actual like measurements, like where he's trying to figure out like, well, actually, how is this thing going to be made? There are numbers here, which I'm assuming, yeah, are like some kind of technical numbers. And so while all this is happening, while he's kind of zeroing in on these stripes and how big they are, let's say, the kind of physical aspect is in progress. And I know that because over here in his Nikon folder, and where is the Nikon? The Nikon folder is where he kept his like photography. If we scroll down, we have a folder called Petzl Aufbau, Petzl Construction, and if we click here, we could see, these stretchers have been made. And so while Majerus is working on the computer, at some point he's already sent these stretcher instructions to somebody to fabricate. And this is a photograph in the Petzl gallery. And these are, again, are 3x3, which are kind of huge. And probably I should also mention that on page 16 of his notes, he already mentions doing a 3x3 meter work. So again, these ideas are kind of coming through him from all different years and all different directions, let's say. Okay, so this Petzl Aufbau folder is kind of incredible, and you'll see in a second. So if we scroll down, not only do we have the construction, we have the painting. So here are the paintings in progress. The one on the left is 1, the one in the middle is 2, and the one on the right is 3. Pressure groups 1, pressure groups 2, pressure groups 3. And even cooler is if we scroll down, we have him painting. There we go. And there's one in particular I want to bring up and come back to in a second. Cool. And then, most amazing, if we click on this file here, we have a video of him painting. Hold on, it's going to open. I don't know what any of these words mean, and I'm just going to pick one. I think I picked the right one. Okay, check this out. Here we go. Amazing. Incredible. A couple of things that I want to point out. One is he seems to be carrying on a conversation while he's painting the painting, which seems like mind-boggling to me. I'd heard that he didn't like people to see him painting. I guess not that much because there are other people in this room, but and the reason that I heard is because he felt that he was too good of a painter and he didn't want people to see how easy it was for him. And that reminds me real quick, I had a friend who worked for Ronald Feldman, who was one of Warhol's late print dealers. And Warhol also didn't like people to see him painting. And he accidentally wandered into Warhol's print studio by accident one day. And Warhol was there painting, and he kind of got up and looked visibly annoyed and took off his smock and left. And Warhol's had a different reason, was because Warhol didn't want people to know he painted. He wanted to think it was a kind of machine in his factory or in his studio. And also, and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I had always assumed that these straight lines were done with tape, but I don't see any tape here. And inspecting the painting at the estate, I also thought, maybe it doesn't look like it was done with tape. So I wonder if he's doing these lines freehand, which just also seems like completely wild to me. If you're a painter, hit me up in the comments. Maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Amazing. Okay, so if we scroll all the way to the end, we actually could see the finished 3 paintings. And let's talk real quick about the colors. I wasn't able to find exactly where the colors came from, but there's a really great essay by Heike Karin Vohl in Majerus's Kunstmuseum Stuttgart catalog. And she wrote that Majerus wrote her in August of 2002 this: "Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, I am being Frank Stella. I am painting as I am painting my triangles. They're going to be in quite garish neon colors because I have not done any color tests at all." Cool. And I think that yesterday, today, and tomorrow that he mentions is the 31st, the 30th, and the 29th of August, because if we look here, we see that the paintings were finished on the 31st. And again, as mentioned earlier, this is in the gallery space. So this is like all happening like really at the last minute. Okay, so if this were a normal artist, we would be done. But this is Michel Majerus. We are not done. So I have some kind of like other kind of amazing things to show you. So just the day after this painting session on, if we go to the Nikon New York and then a Stella folder, and this is September 1st, Majerus is out in New York and he's photographing Frank Stella. So here is a Frank Stella from a lobby of a skyscraper in New York. I wasn't able to identify this exact Frank Stella, but it was checked into Foursquare a couple years ago in the Zenith building in New York. So perhaps it's still there. We, of course, in the laptop are in 2002. So in 2002, it was in this skyscraper. And if you're saying, Corey, how is that possibly the same Frank Stella that we saw earlier in the episode? Frank Stella. What a saga. Real quick. At this time, so I was 24 when Majerus took this photograph, and I was just learning about contemporary art, and people used to be like, late Stella. I mean, late Stella was a thing that was a little bit like an uncomfortable guest at Thanksgiving. Nobody knew what to do with late Stella because, as you could see, it's like totally out of control. A few years later, he ended up having a retrospective at the Whitney, and I can't remember if it was the 00s or like the 2010s, and they lined everything up. And, you know, some of the late Frank Stellas, they were amazing. They were like these kind of cyborg, dystopic, Giger, like hellscape sculpture paintings. And like among my community of artists, and I was younger then, we were all like, yeah, this stuff rocks. And so, you know, eventually people came around to this stuff. I mean, for me now looking at this, this looks amazing. I mean, it's like totally bonkers. So I'm getting sidetracked, but you know, Frank Stella, 2 thumbs up. Okay, so Majerus is taking photographs of Stella in skyscrapers just after having finished his painting. And that brings me to the last file where I want to kind of conclude for today, is this amazing file from September 3rd called all.psd. Now, this is 2 days before his opening in New York. And what Majerus has done here is he's made this kind of incredible collage, and we'll see it in a second. Yeah, so here is this collage. So up on the top left, we have an image from a Frank Stella show at the Castelli Gallery in 1966. This image actually is on the Castelli website right now. We have a photograph that Majerus took of a Peter Haley show at Mary Boone Gallery in 2002. These 2 paintings are called Panic Room and Secret Keeper. We have a Majerus work from the Petzl show called Your Bad Taste. And I could take away there, you could see that a little bit better. We have the pressure groups paintings, and on top, we have the incredible Frank Stella at this New York City skyscraper. And my read on this is like, I think he's trying to feel how these things feel together and maybe see how they look together. And also it's kind of amazing, like all the relationships between, you know, the pressure groups paintings and the Haley and the Stella, the Haley and the Your Bad Taste, the colors of the Stella. I mean, there's like 1,000 relationships you could kind of peg between these artworks. Okay, so that's kind of the files for today. And in conclusion, I want to think about like, well, what have we just seen? The elevator pitch would be something like, okay, he's thinking about Stella in the 90s, in the mid-90s. He's thinking about taking a detail. He's thinking about Pollock and Stella together. He's thinking about 3 meters by 3 meters. He finds an amazing Frank Stella, Sidi, Ifni. He takes little bits of it, or I would say like chops and screws it, and then basically comes up with this triangle. Doesn't really take any of the Stella, but just takes the idea of a triangle with stripes, and then makes these incredible pressure groups paintings. And his work has often been talked about like in relationship to like sampling or remixing, and I don't think those are like so helpful. For me, like what this reminds me of is working in a DAW or like a digital audio workstation. And, you know, I know that because I'm quite addicted to these DAW podcasts. Like, for example, there's one called Tape Notes. And on Tape Notes, musicians bring their laptops and they play all these versions of the song and what end up being the final song. There's a great recent one with 100 gecs, which I recommend highly. But anyway, what usually happens on these podcasts is the musician comes in and they play a demo. And the demo might even be just a sample of something else. And then they add this, and then they add this, and take away this, blah, 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 blah. And by the end, like the final song has like no relationship or little relationship literally to the original, but it has the same kind of energy or vibe or whatever. I think I know that's kind of what happened here. The final pressure groups have this kind of vibe of a Stella, and maybe you could even say a little vibey of a Haley, but there is no direct relationship. But in the end, that's how they become a Majerus. And I think if we take this metaphor just a tiny step further, I've heard Majerus's work I've heard him referred to as a printer, which I think is kind of a cool, like, I think it's kind of accurate because we saw him painting and he's like a machine when he's painting. And so maybe the way to think of these is this is a kind of digital artwork, almost until the end. And in a way, these paintings are kind of printed out, but the printer just happens to be Majerus and not like a robot in a sense. And it's kind of amazing. I mean, the whole thing is kind of mind-blowing. So that's what I got for you today. Thank you so much. Really looking forward to making a couple of more of these between now and March 2025. Hit me up in the comments. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. And see you soon. Peace.